Hey, this is Dag, and you're listening to Beyond Trek Podcast.
Red alert.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Beyond Trek Podcast. I'm your host, Dag. In the room with me, I've got Suzanne and special guest Miranda. Thank you so much for joining us, Miranda. It's so wonderful to have you on board. I love having guests from Twitter. It's just so much more personal and just like you get to meet new people, and that's my jam. For the audience, came across Miranda on Twitter talking about her cosplay aspirations, and specifically as the Bollywood Bev, a Beverly Crusher interpretive cosplay, and we super love that. And we'll get into that, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Star Trek.
Well, first of all, thank you both so much for having me on the podcast. It's really exciting. And I'm really, really grateful to be here and that you appreciate what I do and wanted to talk to me more. So I'm very grateful. And I actually got into Star Trek just under a decade ago, 2013. A friend of mine was just like, "Hey, have you ever watched Star Trek?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "You want to watch it?" And we figured out, okay, well, we'll start with Next Gen. And I fell in love with it, and it was just so hopeful and inspiring. And it was a really difficult time in my early 20s, just straight out of college and all of that. And it just gave me so much hope for the future and really brought me out of a difficult situation. And I really credit Star Trek and, Next Gen particularly for really uplifting me and teaching me how to boldly go and to be my own captain. And I've just really taken those lessons I've learned in the last decade and made a lot of amazing things happen. And I learned a lot of that from Beverly Crusher, which is why I started my cosplay for her too. It's an homage to her, as a thank you to her. It's 2013 to now, so it's been I feel like maybe I'm a newbie, a newer fan, and I have not seen all the treks, but I am slowly working my way through them, and it's really exciting because I constantly have new episodes. There's so much for me to learn about and watch for the first time, which is always a really special experience. And I just I've seen a bit of DS9. I've seen some of the original series. I just started Strange New Worlds, and I absolutely loved it. I've seen Discovery as well. So I've been working my way through all the treks, and it's really exciting. Attended a few cons in the last couple of years, where I did my costumes and got to meet so many amazing, so many of the stars who were amazing. Including the late great Nichelle Nichols, who we all miss. Just want to check her out. And as a woman of color, like seeing her was really important. It was really special to meet her. So yeah, I've had so many wonderful experiences since immersing myself into the world of Trek. My love for Dr. Crusher keeps bringing me back whenever life gets too busy and I don't get to watch episodes. It was actually the announcement that she was coming back in Picard that I just went ballistic. I was like, oh my goodness, this is my dream come true. And I'm just like, well, let me dive back in before Picard happens, season 3, and I have to catch up on Picard before that happens. So it's Dr. Crusher who is like the core of my Trek world, and who has like really inspired me and has really brought me back into Trek after, I went to get my master's degree. I started a career as a therapist, and really taking the lessons I learned from Dr. Crusher to be a good human, to be a good person. I found a career that I feel like I could emulate those values that, I felt like I had in common with her and I could like live up to, and pursue like new things, boldly go, So yeah, that's how I got into Trek, and now I am delving back in after a while away because pandemic life and all of that. But I feel like it's been really special that the first time I decided to step back in tweet something about, my Trek experience. And this is what resulted from it. Like, I got invited to a podcast. Like, how cool is that? Like, what a wonderful way to come back into Trek. So again, thank you both so much. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think I mean, we're honored to have you on the show. I mean, honestly, like I love what you do. And I mean, I've probably told the story about 17,000 times, so Dag, feel free to roll your eyes at me, but Beverly Crusher was my first imaginary friend when I was like 4, because I started watching TNG when I was a little baby. So I've been into Trek a long time, but yeah, I also got into it in my early 20s. I got back into it right around when the pandemic hit. So I definitely, Beverly Crusher is definitely like one of my favorite characters of all time. And I absolutely love your cosplays. I actually want to talk a little bit more about specifically like your con experience and like what your favorite parts have been about your cosplay. And also maybe if you've had any challenges or any uncomfortable questions or anything like that, or just like what's your favorite thing and what maybe not so great.
Yeah, so I started the cosplay in November of 2015, I think. There was a smaller con in Rhode Island happening, and Gates McFadden was going to be there. And I just had this idea, like, what if like Gates were like in this like dressed up in Indian wear and was like, the colors of her uniform. And I was like, how can I get her to do that? And then I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And then I figured out I'm going to be Bollywood Bev. And I figured out, like, I looked for like pieces for the costume, matched them with the uniform colors. And I debuted it at this smaller Rhode Island con where she was there. I think it was just her and Terry Farrell and like one other, it wasn't a lot of Trek stars. It was really small and intimate. And I felt like it was the right like way for me to debut, not like at one of those bigger Trek conventions like Vegas. And she loved it, and I was that's that was just so validating. I did that as an homage to her, and also because one of the things I learned from her was that it was okay to be me and to love myself and to love my culture and embrace it. And I did not have to be anybody else. I did not have to fit into any other standards. I didn't have to be a white person to feel like I belonged. I could just be me. And she made me feel so comfortable in my skin. And I wanted to celebrate that as an homage to her character and to her as an artist who brought this character to life. And that's how Bollywood Bev was born. And she loved it, and then a year later I upgraded it, added a little bit more decorative, like embellishments to the costume. And I think I worn that costume maybe at 3 or 4 cons. I did it in Star Trek missions in New York one year, and also at Vegas in 2017, which was the last con I went to. And it has been really well received. I've never actually gotten any negative comments, and I think it was probably different, that people were just kind of stunned and excited, which is really wonderful to me, because to put myself out there, I'm an introvert. To put myself out there, I mean, I know I was gonna get looks. So I knew, like, okay, people are gonna stare and they're gonna ask questions and all of that, and I gotta just rock it. I gotta be bold, I gotta be brave, confident, and I just gotta wear myself with pride. And so many people just responded really well to it. And I think it was Star Trek missions. I entered the costume contest, and I got to like walk across the stage. That picture I shared on Twitter was captured by the Star Trek people who captured it on in a really great picture of me on stage debuting it in the costume contest. And Terry Farrell was a guest judge on it, and it was so cool. And it was such an exciting moment. I just felt so free and so bold and powerful. And because, just learning those lessons from Dr. Crusher to just be me, I didn't have to hide from the world. I could just like show up and say, this is me. And this is my version of like me being part of the Star Trek world. And Terry Farrell afterwards said that she wanted me to win, but it wasn't. I did not make the costume. I assembled pieces that I bought, and they chose others to win who actually made their costumes. And I totally get that. So much work goes into that, but I mean, it was just so well received. And I even had one person tell me that my costume reminded them of the character from The Expanse, Christine, I think, of Australia. And I think that character wears saris in The Expanse. I have not watched that show, but I've seen like little clips of it. And and that was really, really, really nice to hear as well. You know, it went beyond Trek. It went into other franchises and universes where characters were just in their cultural wear and just being who they were, and I just felt like really, it was really wonderful to hear that, and to be so well received. So I have not had any sort of like, I think if there were any sort of tough like comments or questions, it was, oh, I don't get it, or like, what is this supposed to be, you know? But most people got it, you know? And once I would explain it to them, you know, it was like, oh, this is cool, you know? Like, I think it was like a new concept. And to this day, I don't think I've seen anybody else do something like that in Trek. And I would love for other people to embrace their culture in their own iterations of the uniforms, you know? And I've done, in addition to the main one, I've done the science blue uniform. I've done Dr. Crusher's dress uniform, which I love the dress uniform. Dag, I just I just think it's so cool. The dress uniform is awesome.
Which dress uniform is it? The white one?
The white one, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
I love it. And so I did one for that. I did Dr. Crusher's Captain Picard uniform for the last finale episode. I love when she's the captain. And I did her blue lab coat uniform, and that was, you know. So I'm my goal is to like replicate most of her outfits in my own iterations of them. And I'm thinking, you know, since I'm getting back into Trek, I'm thinking like, okay, which one can I do next? How can I upgrade the ones that I've already done? And you know, it was really DIY. I had like a scrunchie holding up like my little shawl in the very first one I did. Like but it matched and everything. Like, yeah, so it's been really, really exciting, and I think really well received, and a lot of younger Trek fans as well. I think they reached out to me saying like they were so inspired and they wanted to do their own, and I hope they follow through with that. That would be really, really awesome. And I think if that's what that's my contribution to the Trek world, to get others to feel proud of themselves and in their skin and in their culture, and showcase it, and live up to the values of Star Trek, you know, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and just say like we're part of this too. I think like I've done something really wonderful. So I'm just really grateful that it was so well.
I think awesome. That is so awesome. I love your enthusiasm and your excitement. I love that, you know, you are inspiring others to stand up and represent themselves authentically as well inside of Star Trek. I do this sign off on Twitter every now and then. It's like elevate each other. And I just think that the Star Trek fandom is like the perfect place to do that. And you doing that is just like made manifest. It's so cool. And I hope that takes you all the places.
Thank you so much. I feel like ever since I started Bollywood Bev all those years ago, it has just been like a gift that keeps on giving. Like it just wasn't that one-time thing. Like every time I share something about it, even if years have passed, like something wonderful comes of it. Like just being here with both of you today. Like I could not have foreseen that coming, because I think what I shared in my tweet was, would anyone be interested in like a Beverly Crusher centered podcast with me talking about, you know, her journey through Next Gen from my perspective, you know, as an Indian woman, and which I don't think has been done yet. And I was really nervous to make that tweet, and to think like this is the outcome. This is, you know, like I can't imagine, like, you know, let me follow through with this. And I was really inspired. And I was just stunned that you invited me on. I was like, oh, this is so wonderful. Like, and such a good sign, I think, for me, that this is like my Bollywood Bev, and just Trek in general, is the gift that keeps on giving. Like no matter how many years or time you may take away from it, you come back to it and it is just always so fulfilling and wonderful to be part of.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, my favorite thing when I was at Mission Chicago recently, I dressed up as like the 40s 7 of 9 from one episode in Voyager, and my favorite part of it was getting younger fans, like really young fans, like kids, coming up to me and recognizing my cosplay and taking pictures, and it was super cool. And I wish I had gotten like their moms, like I wish I had asked their mom, like, can you send it to me, because I don't have any of them. But do you have any favorite like interactions specifically, whether it be actors or younger fans? Do you have any favorite interactions that you've had?
I definitely remember a lot of people ask me for pictures, and it can get really overwhelming. I can't even imagine what the actual like stars of Star Trek go through, because it's wonderful, but it's overwhelming to just receive like a lot of people who are just so interested in getting a pic with you or just talking with you, and especially as an introvert, it's like, oh my goodness, like here I am just doing my thing, and then like just it expanded in a way that I couldn't have foreseen. But I think my favorite interaction, I think when I debuted it to Gates at that very first time, and the first words out of her mouth, and I had already met her at cons like 1 or 2 times previously, so it was she remembered me, and that was really nice. I think the words out of her mouth was, "You look hot, baby."
So
like,
true.
oh
That sounds just like her. Oh my god.
I'm like those words have been seared into my mind. Like that was the first reaction from her. I'm like, yeah, this is it. And then we took a picture. I think maybe at a different con when I had done the costume again, and maybe I'll share it. I'll share it with you guys. But there I was in the picture with her, just smiling away, and she was in the back. I had no idea what she was doing. She was doing like an Indian pose, like, and she's like that in the picture. I had no idea she did that until I got the picture. Like, I was just smiling, happy to be with her, and there she was, just like.
you got Bev bombed.
So, yeah, and I think those are special because I created the costume for her in mind. I was gonna buy her like fabric and everything, like, Gates, wear this. And then when I decided, like, okay, I'm gonna be the one to do it, to execute this, just to see her reaction and her embracing it, and just the joy it brought her in return for the joy and confidence and bravery and courage she gave to me, was just this wonderful like moment between us.
It's been passed around on Twitter, like, Gates is the matriarch of Star Trek now.
Yes.
Like, she is the most inclusive, the most accepting. She wants to celebrate everybody's diversity.
Yes.
I don't think Gates could say a bad thing about anybody. And
no,
I love that she is such a force for positivity from what I would consider to be the top down in Star Trek. Like, we look up to them, and so many of the actors have definitely embraced an understanding that we do look up to them, and they're more than just your run-of-the-mill person or actor. They're and I guess in our own ways we're all sort of inspiring of others, but to have millions of people look up to you and say, I want to be like that someday, but I want to do it my way. And they get it, and they're just like, you know what, just rock it, just run with it. And I'm so grateful for that. And that's a beautiful fandom. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry.
Yo, don't cry, Dag. Don't cry. There's no crying in podcasting.
No, there's always room for crying.
That's
in
true.
podcasting.
There's always room. When it comes to Trek.
I'm a therapist. Crying is always welcome.
What's your therapy specialty?
So I currently work with kids of all ages up to age 18, and just helping them through any type of mental health struggle, whether that is like depression, anxiety, PTSD, just the run of the mill. And I'm fairly new. I got my degree in 2020. I'm a pandemic grad, and I've been at this current therapy position since last December. So I am still learning the ropes, but every time I step into my office, I'm like, I got here because of what I learned from Star Trek. And I do get a lot of messages from younger kids like, oh, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I could not imagine being somebody that people said that to, knowing that's how I feel about, our Star Trek idols, So yeah, I'm working on deepening my understanding of mental health in my practice, and learning diagnoses and all of that. But what I want to specialize is in intergenerational trauma. I think, we carry so much from the generations before us, and it impacts so much of our daily life. So I think that is what I would hope to specialize in. And especially for communities of color that carry historical trauma from, all the difficult things we've our ancestors have experienced. I am a descendant of Indian indenture, um, and that is often overlooked in the history books. And my ancestors were replacements on plantations for slaves when emancipation happened. But my people don't get a mention, And I feel like I became a therapist to do the work for my community, for my diaspora, to help support us in our mental health needs, and to destigmatize and normalize mental health care, and just to let people know, like, we are here, we were part of history, even if we are not acknowledged, and that is also part of something that, like, everything that I do is all tied back to what I learned just from Star Trek, like advocating for yourself and speaking up and not being afraid, and Dr. Crusher challenging the laws and the prime directive, and saying, like, I don't care if, like, this is what the regulations are, this is wrong. And I learned to have a voice from seeing her, as somebody who is very quiet normally, like, speaking up about social justice and change, and doing the right thing, and striving for progressive ideals. Like, this is all things that I learned from Star Trek, and in my position as a therapist and a social worker, whose goal is to seek justice and equity, and improving our quality of life so that we can all thrive, not just survive, so that we can thrive. These are things that Star Trek and Dr. Crusher instilled in me. And I really try to, every time I go to my office, I try to live up to that. Like, what would Dr. Crusher want me to do today? And you were talking about Gates being the matriarch and how kind she is and how wonderful. It's so true. And every time I have this, these moments where I struggle with, um, personal interactions, and we all have these feelings of, like, um you know but when we're hurt, we want to lash out, like, it's a human instinct. And I'm like, wait, but I want to be someone like Gates, where I pause and I reflect and I see the value in this other person, and not react on my emotions, and really try to see where they're coming from. And just not just Dr. Crusher, but Gates as a person, like, has really just been such a positive role model for me, that I'm like, I want to be on that level. I want to be so wonderful to people that I'm not holding all these negative emotions. I want to be someone who is past that, beyond that, because we live in a world where there is so much happening to all of us. We are all traumatized and exhausted from this pandemic. The least we can do is be kind and wonderful and open and embrace one another. We don't have the time to be spreading cruelty or unkindness or bigotry. There's so much of it going on that I don't want to be a part of that. I want to create that shift where kindness and acceptance and tolerance is the norm and is the default. And this all goes back to, you know, Star Trek and Dr. Crusher and Gates. I'm constantly looking for them, for the ways that they continue to inspire me. It is an ever present force in my life. And while I have not watched episodes, until really recently, because life got in the way, those ideals and those values are constantly present in my mind. And I think that is just the lasting influence of Star Trek, and the vision that Gene Roddenberry had. And it is just such a powerful thing. I never think, like, oh, it's just a TV show, it's just a franchise. It's more than that. It is art. And I'm also an artist. Clearly, Bollywood Bev is part of my art. I'm a performance artist.
For
And
sure.
I really think, art heals. Art is what saves us when we are at our lowest. Star Trek certainly saved me at my lowest. And art is what really lifts our spirit to keep going and do what we have to do in this world. And it's merging, like, the artistic with, the practical in our world, and finding that beautiful balance where we can just be our best selves and, like, live good lives and be there for each other. So,
I want to touch on what you were saying earlier about, like, practicing the level of patience and tolerance, and not reacting to a situation, but taking into account what's happening and responding to the situation. And I, as somebody who, I've mentioned this on the show a couple of times, as somebody who grew up kind of toxic and didn't really like figure it out until I was in my mid-30s, like anybody who's listening to the show, and especially the work that you do with the kids, like figure it out sooner. Get that ability to say, wait, what's happening in this moment, and don't just succumb to the immediate reaction to lash out in the moment. And practice that as often as possible. And it is sort of the case that like you don't get the opportunity to practice that until you're in the moment where you need to practice it. But knowing that there is another option than just reacting basically perhaps the way that we see the people around us reacting, and that's our model for how we react to situations. Practicing early and often, that's going to get us where like the goal that you stated there. If kids know there's another option and they practice these skills in their teens and their 20s, they don't end up in their mid-30s have 15-20 years of undoing in themselves, but also 15 to 20 years of some harm that was done. And that'll get us to that idic future.
Yeah, I am guilty of it. I have a Twitter with a few followers here and there, and I get into drama occasionally. I've started to kind of back away from it and support the people that I love and try and be there for them as I can, but I don't want to be a part of the dog pile anymore. I don't want to be a part of that energy anymore, because it's draining. It really is. At some point it's incredibly draining. And so usually, if something's wrong, and if something is clearly like this person is being homophobic to one of my friends, I don't like that, I'm gonna speak out about it, but it's a learning curve, especially as someone who grew up on social media, to learn to just relax, take a second, look at it, figure it out, then speak. And it's taken a lot for that, but I wanted to touch on what you said about just like Gates being so kind, and it just being such a it really is like Trek brought me out of my shell in a huge way, because my I guess not my first Trek, but the one that I started watching when I was in my early 20s was Voyager, and Catherine Janeway. It's been a consistent like, what would Catherine Janeway do thing for the last like 2-3 years, because it matters to people. And I spend so much time telling Star Trek fans like, y'all, it's a television show, because sometimes we get caught up in like, oh, this is canon, and no, Tuvix, and like all of that stuff, and it's a television show that happened 20 years ago. We can like it, and we can internalize it, and we can make it like, if we want to make ourselves better people. And I love that. I love stories like that. Because Trek does mean it is more of a television show to so many people, and it is it's especially those who may not feel that they're represented can find themselves represented, or can represent themselves, and I love that. And that's one of the privileges that I have to invite people like you onto the podcast, because I love that. I love that you're able to speak to Gates about your culture, why you do it, and that she stands there like this in the back of the photo. I love that. And I love that you, and I really do. I really hope that influences younger generations to follow your lead with that, because I love that. And I was going to ask, have you noticed? I mean, have you noticed that influence? I mean, have you noticed people saying like, "Wow, I want to be like that. I want to do that." And have you ever seen your influence at all in cons later?
I mean, I haven't been to a con since 2017, so I really couldn't say. But what I do know, I think where I've seen the influence the most is I think I had shared that same picture that I shared on Twitter on Tumblr a few years ago. Back when I was on Tumblr, I'm not there anymore.
Same. Yeah.
And I think it was there were so many young people that were just like, oh my goodness, like I can do this too, as someone who is a person of color, like I can belong, and I don't have to like hide myself. And I think that is what really stayed with me, that sort of influence. And somebody was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like figure out how to do my own cultural costume. And I have been waiting to see that person's like, I'm like, where is it? Like, I really hope like they find it in them to like, to manifest that and make it a reality. And I think that's where I've seen the influence the most. Not necessarily uh, with people who I've encountered, because we all go our own ways. But I think, in online communities, just seeing that sort of response, and people were just like, oh, this is possible. And I think being able to give the idea that, like, yes, it is possible, and open up people's world a little bit more in the way that my world has been opened up. I think that's been really, really special. And I think, like you were saying, um, working with the young people, I love working with kids and teens, because, like, exactly what you were saying, when you influence them from a young age, we can circumvent so much harm and so much negativity that they might otherwise have gone through in those, especially in those turbulent teen years and early 20s. If we like instill in them the values that will lead them to a good and a better life, and teach them about self-love, and instill that from the very beginning, like, who can, like there is so much potential. They're going to be a generation that is way better off than I think we were. My younger years were really tough, and I think that is why I loved Star Trek so much, because it really shifted something for me. College was awful. Like, I did not enjoy college. And high school was rough. All those years, my early 20s, figuring out, like, who I am, what I want to do. And not fitting in with people, always feeling like a weirdo. And then Star Trek said, "Hey, it's okay to be you. Like, it's fine, and you just like go out into the world and do what you feel called to do, and that is okay, and that is all you ever need to do in this world." And I learned that at, like, age 24, and I wish I had learned that sooner. And so I think, like, what I try to do in my work is instill the things that I have learned in the last decade in these kids who are like 5 and 6, and coming up in their youth, and if they really, like, take hold of that lesson from really young, like, I feel like we will leave the younger generations in a much better place than we were, and how we grew up in. And that is really my hope. That's why I do what I do. I love working with younger kids and young people. I feel like that's where it starts. And not to say, like, when we're older we can't change. Of course we can change. We all have the potential to change. And it's just about, like, undoing and unlearning, and just committing to being better than we were before. And none of us are perfect. We all have our moments where we were unkind, and we were cruel, and we were just not the best versions of ourselves, and just, like, apologizing to whomever we've harmed, and just trying to do better, and committing to that, by not just saying that we're going to do better, but by acting on that, and putting our best foot forward, and through our actions, like, making that commitment and just trying our best. We all have the potential to be better in this lifetime. And yeah, and I think, Suzanne, what you were saying also about, us getting into, like, I've gotten into so many, like, Twitter drama as well, just because there are sometimes you cannot be quiet, right? But then there's sometimes when it's okay to walk away for your own sanity. And I had to learn to walk away, just because it was draining. I'm like, I don't have time to be sitting on Twitter arguing to people who are clearly, like, some people are going to get it, and some people are just set in their ways, and that is their journey to figure out. We can only do so much. We're not responsible for other people's journeys. We can only, like, share our inner wisdom that we all have, and hope that it resonates. And what gives me hope is that I always feel like, if I impact, influence, or touch one person's life, I have fulfilled my purpose on earth, because that one person can go on to impact another person, and it's like a domino effect. And one person's life is so full of value. They are important, they matter, and they are, a gift to this world. That one person, you have changed a whole world, a whole person's life. That is enough. I'm just happy if I reach one person, to be honest. So that's why it's been overwhelming that what I have done has been well received, because I never intended. I was just doing this little project for myself. I think of it like as a project I started, not this, like, oh, I'm gonna be. I try not to have an ego. Like, it's not about me in the end. It's never, like, while it started as an homage to my culture and Gates, it was bigger than me, and it blew into something bigger than me. And I'm just grateful to be a part of it all. To have to have some kind of like stamp in the Star Trek universe, like that's just wonderful, and I'm just grateful that I was able to do that at all, you know. And like I was saying, just one person, that is enough for me, because that person is going to go on to change their own universe, you know, their own circle, and
That's
and it's going to
awesome.
domino effect and go on from there.
Yeah, no, and I wanted to touch on kind of what you said about just like for me, like, Star Trek is very found family, and I feel like, you know, we've all been through so much in the pandemic, and for me, I got back into Trek through the pandemic, and so it was really hard time, and you know, my found family has been people, you know, on Twitter, people like you, people that I have met in the Twitterverse that have become part of the found family for me. I mean, it's true. I mean, you know, I had a really hard time, you know, because I still live at home, and so living at home through the pandemic was rough. And you know, and I'm taking a semester off of school and things like that, and so, you know, through going to conventions and through meeting so many like-minded people, especially through Trek, I mean, I've learned to better myself as a person. I've learned, you know, I've hurt people, I've apologized, I've learned from it, I've come back, I've, you know, you have this like a narrative back and forth, and you meet so many amazing people, and I think that's what's so amazing about it to me, especially at conventions. I find that you know, all of the online stuff just makes sense. It all comes together in one big thing, and you meet so many people, and you meet, you know, actors, and you get to tell them, you know, for example, I met Michelle Hurd and in Chicago, and basically told her thank you for being willing to represent me, someone like me, you know, who loves women and is not ashamed of it. And you know, she was super sweet about it, and she wanted everybody to be, you know, I want everyone to find themselves in Rafi. I want everyone to be comfortable with that, and I want, you know, and that was just amazing. I mean, it's amazing what that one little domino can do. You know, it's true. I mean, I think the whole of the Trek fandom is one big domino effect of people affecting other people's lives, and I think it's really amazing what you do. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I remember as you were speaking, I had this memory talking about, like, you know, queerness and just embracing that. I think it was the Star Trek convention in 2017 when I went. There was a gays in space party, and I was like, okay, I'll go, right? And the now visitor was there, and I just remember we were just dancing to Lady Gaga's "Born This Way" together, and it was just, you know, and like, just to have that moment in a Trek space, you know, with Nana, like this is what Trek is about, and just like embracing people having fun together, like, what, you know, like, this is what it is about, and I'm really glad you had that moment to thank Michelle Hurd, because when I went to my first Star Trek convention, I think it was New York Comic Con in 2014, where I met Gates and Marina Sirtis, and I was so shy and so introverted. I was kind of trying to hide behind all the other people in front of me. Like I did not want to be seen. And now I'm like somebody who is like seen in Bollywood Bev, and that is the impact of Star Trek, that I can go from that person in her shell, like, please don't look at me, please don't look at me, and they were looking at me, you know. And all I wanted to do at that my first convention was just to say thank you. It was just a way for me to say thank you, and I never expected to like meet them multiple times. And the fact that it has been multiple times, and I have a really wonderful relationship with Gates, and she remembers me and values me, and it's just been so special. And I think it's every member of the Star Trek cast, from regardless of which show they are on, they're all spectacular people, and I think they were called to those roles. You know, I don't believe in coincidences. Like, they were the ones who needed to fill those roles, and reach the people that needed to be reached. And you know, I think it's just such a beautiful thing, and I just love stories like that. And it's all about, like, just wanting to say thank you, and then just going out into the world and doing what you can to reach another person, you know. And I think that's the beauty of it.
I love what has happened in this episode so much.
Same. I love it.
You know, we had a list of questions. I think we directly asked 2 or 3 of them, and you went through all the rest of them, which was amazing. But this turned into so much more than just let's talk to this person and do an interview, and it turned into this great like circle sphere of positivity. Just go.
Awesome.
Everybody who's listening to this, I hope that like you're idling in your car before work and just being like, yes, give me more. It's like the Care Bear
awesome.
stare of Idic.
For sure.
Oh man. Miranda, what are some other causes or subjects about which you are passionate and would like to share with us today?
Yes, so as I mentioned before, thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. As I mentioned before, I am a descendant of Indian indenture. So I belong to a population of Indians who were taken from India to the Caribbean and other places around the world to be replacement labor after the emancipation of slavery, to work on sugar plantations. We were bodies, we were property for other people, and we get erased in history. And so I'm really passionate about bringing awareness to my community and saying we are here and we matter. I live in New York City, and my community is the 5th largest immigrant population in New York City. And we have absolutely no representation, no in government, no services catered to us. And that is why I became a social worker, a therapist, to provide those services to our community. And one of the organizations I work with, Jahaji Sisters, they work with our community members to fill that gap. And our mission is to end gender-based violence and violence against anyone. We are descended from a legacy of violence, unfortunately, because our ancestors survived, and there is alcoholism that leads to violence, and especially against women and children and gender non-conforming people. And so we really work to educate people and support survivors of domestic violence, sexual abuse, and really say to the United States and New York City and wherever we live, our pockets where we live, to say we are here and we deserve to be seen, and we deserve to be cared for. And that's part of my work as well. And I really just want to constantly, no matter what I do, I just want to uplift my people, my community, and shine a light on us, a positive light for us for once, because we have been through so much hardship, and to have it glossed over or shunted aside, and and being told that we don't matter. I really want to just shine a light and teach people about us and say that we matter. And I always just want to encourage people to learn about us. I grew up learning in history books about everybody else's culture except mine. And I know I could, I used to be in a high school drum corps, and we marched in every cultural parade, the Greek parade, the St. Patrick's Day parade down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Like I was like an honorary Irish, and then it was like, but what about my culture? What about my people? And so whatever I do, I just want to uplift my community and the issues that we struggle with, and say that we're here and we deserve to be seen and cared for, and we need services and we need support. And I just want to continually just do that no matter what I do. And I think being able to do Bollywood Bev and infuse my love of all the things I'm passionate about with my culture, and just be like a visual representation of where I come from. That was part of it too, to embrace my heritage, because that was something I tried to hide in college and just be somebody else. And it was like, why was I doing that? I should just be me. And so I think that is the cause near and dear to my heart. It's very personal, and no matter what I do, anything that I do always goes back to my community of Indo-Caribbean people and descendants of an Indian indenture. I just want to uplift us and say that I see you, I love you, I'm here for you, and the world is going to know about us. We deserve to be acknowledged and lauded for our tenacity and our survival and our beauty. We are a beautiful people, and I just want people to know about us and see us, and I just, everything that I do is for my community and my people. I just have so much love for us, and yeah, I'm grateful for this opportunity to be on this platform to just share about it and talk about it. It's really, I'm really so grateful, and I think just being able to do so in a Star Trek space with community members and fellow Trekkies, what a perfect place to do that, where it can be accepted and acknowledged, because there are not a lot of spaces like that. And I think what the two of you do, along with your other co-hosts, is so wonderful. And I'm really, truly grateful and humbled. So thank you so much. You are amazing. Thank you.
I think it is we who are now humbled.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. We are very humbled by that. Thank you. That's so sweet.
I just wanted to remark. You mentioned you got into Bollywood Bev because you were looking around trying to see more of you in the fandom, and you didn't see that, so you're just like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then you went and mentioned that in your community, there's not a whole lot of government representation. So are you thinking about doing it?
I told you the idea, like, maybe I'll run for smaller, but I don't think I'm there yet. I'm just very invested in my social work, my therapy work. But, who's to say, I have this big dream of, I come from Guyana. I was born in Guyana in South America. And I would love to go back and serve my community there as well. There's so much need that is there, and I want to be able to take the opportunities and all the skills that I've gained here in the U.S. to my people back there and help them as well. And when I found out when I was younger that I could not be president of the U.S. because I was not born here, I was like, well, I'm going to be president of Guyana, and I have this like goal. If it doesn't happen in the U.S., I'm gonna go serve my people back home and be somebody who can lift them up and elevate them, and improve their quality of life. So if not in New York, then I have these big dreams of becoming Madam President of Guyana. So we will see. Anything is possible. Where I am now is not where I envisioned myself when I first started Star Trek. And it is because of Star Trek that I am where I am now. And who's to say what's to come? And I just continually just try to boldly go and pursue whatever it is my heart is calling me to, and we will see what happens. And I have a pretty good habit of making my dreams come true, so if I really manifest it, I'll get it done. So we will see. We will see.
Let's go women.
Yeah,
let's go women.
your optimism, your positivity, and your can-do, gonna get it done attitude, I have no doubt that wherever you decide to implement yourself and the passion that you have, you're going to be successful to a degree that I don't think any of us can imagine right now. So, come back when you're rich and famous, and we'll do a follow-up interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I hope to continue connecting with you both and just, building community. It is such a special thing to reconnect with fellow Trekkies. I pulled away for a while because it was just there was a lot of toxicity at one point, and I pulled away, and I felt like, oh, there's no space for me, and I just feel so warmly welcomed back into Star Trek and the community. And I feel like this is not a coincidence. Like, you were brought into my life by the stars. This is divinely timed and divinely planned, and I'm just so grateful to meet both of you and just to be able to talk today, and I just feel this love, just this love for our community of fellow Trekkies and everything Star Trek. So thank you again so much.
You're more than welcome.
This has been so great. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome. Yeah, I'm feeling the love today. We're feeling the positivity. That's awesome.
Yeah, we absolutely would love for you to come back on in any capacity, whether we're talking about your ongoing pursuits. But we also have Star Trek Lower Decks is coming back out, and we absolutely are going to love to watch that and maybe get some takes on it. And
Picard Season 3.
Picard Season 3, Strange New World Season 2. I mean, there's so much Trek that's happening right now. There's absolutely going to be spaces made to enjoy the company of more people in this fandom, and we're so glad to have met you, to have shared this episode with you, to celebrate you and all of your forthcoming successes. Absolutely. Can you tell our audience?
Miranda.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell our audience where they can find you online if they want to celebrate you further?
Yes. So on Twitter and on Instagram, I am at Mira Mira_BAII Mirabai. And yeah, feel free to follow. I'm so happy to like connect with other Trekkies. Ever since I made that tweet, people have been following me. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, but I'm embracing it, and I look forward to coming back to cons. I can't do it this summer. I'm going back to visit family in Guyana actually. But I hope that I can, connect with both of you at cons and whoever else. If you see me in a Bollywood Bev costume, come up and say hi. I would love that. I would love that. And I really do hope we get to connect in person at a con sometime. I'm planning on it. I'm planning on making my return to con. So we'll see.
I'm looking forward to Mission Portland next year.
Mission Seattle.
Is it Seattle?
Seattle. I'm also going to Seattle.
That's better.
Wait, are you going to Seattle?
I mean, I could go. I might be going to Seattle. I'm not sure. Like, I just gotta see. Yeah, right. Just apply, and we'll just be like, oh, we're news professionals.
Oh, exactly. We are press
Yes.
people.
Yes, exactly.
We have totally normal reactions to Star Trek, and we are press.
Reach out to everybody. Be like, Beyond Trek got press credentials. Who wants in?
Right, stop. They'll never give it to us, Dag.
No, they never will.
No. We gotta try.
Suzanne, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Captain Janeway. The first A is an X, which I will eventually change, but that day is not today.
CXPTAIN?
Yes.
Yep. I'm Dag. You can find me on Twitter at Trek Nexus. The podcast is at Beyond Trek Pod. And I think that's all the cool stuff there. Miranda, again, you have been exquisite. I can't wait to have you on the show again. And for all the audience who's with us today, thank you for going boldly with Beyond Trek Podcast. Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters, to S. Tam and Nora Hickson. Thank you so much for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.